you said you were cocky. I think you said you were a cocky bastard, although maybe you didn't use exactly that phrase, but that was the gist of it. What kind of relationship did you have, or did you have with your parents? Like, were they responsible for your confidence in some part, or was that something you think that was more a manifestation of your essential character? Like, what was your relationship with your parents like?
All right. So here's where it gets even weirder. My parents are part of this story, but others as well. When I was very young, adults would tell me that I was going to be rich and famous someday. And they would even use the same term. I once got stopped on the street by an older woman who, it was a small town, so she wondered who my parents were and stuff. And she's just chatting with me for a minute. And before she leaves, she goes, "You're going to be rich and famous someday." My mother told me that she expected me to get rich someday so I could take care of her in the manner which she would like to become accustomed to. That was her standard joke. But I literally became rich and then helped them, live in a life that was closer to the standard they wanted to live. And so she always had her own confidence. She was also an artist, by the way. So she was a portrait artist, and I picked up, the drawing fever from either her genes or her example, I don't know. My father was a wannabe comedian. Meaning that he'd say funny things, or all of his letters were funny. So I got kind of the dry humor from him. I got the confidence from, I think, my mother, but from other people as well. People spotted me early. Now, there's one thing I wanted to add to what you were saying about goals. I don't know if you've heard me talk about this, but I famously write about systems being better than goals. Meaning that having a goal but having no system that would help you being prepared for it isn't enough. You got to have the system. So even if you take the simplest one, like when I saw the TV show about how to become a cartoonist and I quickly wrote it down, part of my system has always been to make sure that you've got a pencil and a piece of paper really close all the time. That was my actual system, and that's never changed. Now, how many times have I gotten an idea and I've got exactly 15 seconds to write it down?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Before something changes. Somebody walks in and, I forget it. So that's the smallest example.
Well, that's very astute, I think. I mean, one of the things I've learned as I've spent decades writing is that, like, if I'm laying in bed and I have an idea, I go write it down. Because I know I'll forget it. I'll forget it. It's like, and who knows what use that idea is. And, so here's another thing that's extremely cool. So you set your goal, and then the world arranges itself as a pathway to that goal, and then everything relevant to that. But this is so uncanny. That's also how your imagination works, your thoughts. So your aim calls forth revelation. That's literally, it makes sense if you think about it for a minute. Just imagine that you decide you're going to go somewhere. Well, then obviously what your thoughts should do is circulate around that trip, because what the hell good are they otherwise? But here's the crazy part. The spirit of your aim answers your prayers. This is literally the case, because once you set up an aim, your imagination and your cognitive systems orient themselves to serve that aim. And so, again, part of the religious insistence is serve the highest aim. Well, what is that? Well, that's up to you to figure out to some degree. It's like most of us can tell the difference between an aim that's somewhat better than the one we have and somewhat worse. Like, we've got a pretty good sense of comparative aim. But if you understand that your perceptions and your imagination and revelation itself is structured by your aim, then, well, that makes the world an entirely different place. And it's also rather terrifying, because If you have a pathological aim, then that will structure your imagination, right? It's
Yeah.
very close to demonic. That's very close analogy.
Let me give you a little story that plays perfectly into that. When I was younger, I got married for the first time, and I had stepkids. The marriage didn't work out after several years, and because they're stepkids, you don't get joint custody or anything like that. So that the loss is huge. Like you lose everything, your family, all at the same time. And I realized that that was my sort of main goal in life, was making this little unit happy and healthy and safe. And when that went away, I realized, man, I'm going to need some kind of motivation.
Right.
And I actually said out loud, I was alone, but I said out loud that I was going to donate myself to the world. And that from that point on, I would only work on things that had some larger multiplying effect on the world. And that's when I started writing my books, like How to Fail at Almost Everything and Still Win Big, which has had a big impact on people's success. It's why I talk about politics, because I think it's useful. It's why I do everything. So everything I do now has to have some connection to a larger body of people who would benefit if I do it well. And that revived my sense of meaning at a higher level, so that I haven't had an unhappy day in, I don't know, 20 years. Because even if it's a bad day, I know I'm working toward this larger benefit.
Right.